This is the HeadRush Podcast with Paul Fraze and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the HeadRush Podcast. I'm Corey Berry, and I rode professional rodeo for 9 years as a bareback bronc rider. My co-host is Paul Fraze, who played 11 years in the NFL and got to compete in one Super Bowl and actually beat my 49ers to go to the Super Bowl.
For the NFC Championship. Thank you for not mentioning the fact that we lost the Super Bowl. So
I just bring that up.
Thank you.
That's all right. He brings it up every time.
At the HeadRush Podcast, we talk about everything related to brain trauma and brain health and wellness. We talk about traumatic brain injury, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, and repeated head impacts and repeated blast exposure. We cover how traumatic brain injuries can and will cause mental health issues such as depression, addiction, lack of executive function, memory loss, even suicide ideation, as well as the degenerative neurological issues. These symptoms can be found on the Mayo Clinic and Boston University websites under symptoms of CTE. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope. We focus our energy on finding therapies and sharing hope through education and awareness.
Our first guest shared this hope with me unknowingly, probably 3 years ago. So Dr. Mark L. Gordon is the founder of the medical and medical director of the Millennium Health Centers. And Dr. Gordon, and I'm going to start calling him Mark because he's going to force me to. He has completed extensive research in the area of TBI and PTSD, through which he has developed a successful treatment protocol that has been used with thousands of veterans and civilians alike. And we were first introduced to, I was first introduced to Mark through the silver screen, I guess you would say, the movie Quiet Explosions. And Corey and I have actually have inflammation drilled into us. And
by Dr. Mark Gordon.
By Dr. Mark Gordon. And we'll get into that. And I actually, Dr. Gordon, or Mark actually spoke at an AMMG conference down in Doral 3 years ago, and I kind of stalked him. I drove down the 4.5 hours and made sure I got to meet my hero on Quiet Explosions. Well, Andrew Marr is my
I was
hero.
going to say, Andrew Marr's my hero.
Yeah, Andrew Marr, absolutely.
Yeah, he was a special forces gentleman that was featured in Quiet Explosions, and I believe at the time that you met him, Mark, he was on 7 or 8 or 9 pharmaceuticals. And 13. And his goal was to get off the whiskey, get off the pharmaceuticals, and bring normalcy back to his family and his life. And actually, right. Yeah, that journey has saved his life. And what a dynamic individual. So, Mark,
and if you want to, you can go back in our podcast and look with the interview we had with Andrew Marr.
Yes, yeah, we've had Andrew Marr, and Mark is actually our regular. He's a kind of our house physician. So Mark's second book was released in 2015, titled "Traumatic Brain Injury: A Clinical Approach to Diagnosis and Treatment." And Dr. Gordon is a frequent guest on the Joe Rogan Experience to discuss traumatic brain injury, among other topics. Dr. Gordon has just released his third book, Peptides, and I only have the e version.
Put that up on the website, please, Jordan.
If we already have it on, but Peptides, Optimizing Human Potential and Recovery with Peptides. So, welcome back, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Corey?
Thank you for having me again.
Man, our second guest, I am absolutely thrilled, ecstatic. Everybody knows how I feel about our veterans and our military personnel. We've had Green Berets on. We've had things. But this man has ranked up so many things that I even contacted my brother about him, who was a ranger back in the 80s, because, man, you want to talk about a record. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the HeadRush Podcast to Colonel Martin Jeremy Bowling, who was commissioned into the United States Army in 1999. Over the course of his career, he has served at all levels within the Department of Defense, including commands and deployments across the Balkans, Europe, Africa, Middle East, with the 3rd Infantry Division, 82nd Airborne Division, 101st Airborne Division, United States Africa Command, and the U.S. Department of State. In 2007, Colonel Bowling was selected as a Joint Chiefs of Staff and Secretary of Defense intern. He holds a bachelor's degree from Auburn University and a master's of policy management from Georgetown University McCourt School of Public Policy. He is a graduate of the United States Airborne, Ranger, Jumpmaster, Pathfinder, Air Assault. Now, Jeremy brings unmatched expertise leading complex teams in large organizations in multinational settings. Jeremy is also the co-founder of the Longest Climb Foundation. And their mission is the Longest Climb Foundation helps American veterans find peace, healing, and reconciliation by returning to the battlefields of their service. Standing alongside former adversaries, reclaiming honor, correcting service records, and coming home whole once and for all. He is married to the former Carrie Crawford of Hopewell, Virginia, and they have 2 sons, Ethan and Jack. Plus, he is also president of IMAX Jeans, iExpress Jeans, that we will be getting into here shortly. So I want to welcome you, Colonel, and man, my hat's off to you. Thank you for the service. I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Welcome you too. I've got to answer questions really quick for the listeners. They're going to say, why does the HeadRush podcast have 2 mega dynamic guests on? And they deserve their own podcast, obviously. Well, again, Corey just mentioned about Colonel Bowling is also the president of iExpress Jeans. They deliver molecular level inflammation and metabolic intelligence so professionals can explain why progress stalls, validate what's working, and personalize what comes next with objective data that clients trust. So it sounds like personalized medicine at its best. So, and Mark and Jeremy have, and I apologize, Colonel Bowling, have developed a strategic partnership of sorts, and it all continues to be about the well-being and restoration of the suffering. Mark, can you please just tell us about this new powerful alliance and your friendship?
Well, I think you probably should talk with the Colonel to let us know what it is, why he went into iExpress Jeans, just so that I can have a new tool that any physician who deals with any form of neuroinflammation, neuroinflammation, has a new tool that allows us to not only define objectively and not the psychiatrist say, well, I think they have depression, but to be able to look at markers, biomarkers, which categorically are related to changes in the biochemistry of the brain that I have for 30 years addressed, but I never had this tool.
Yeah.
I never had this objective direct marker system in order for me to identify those inflammatory chemicals that I talk about all the time, the pro-inflammatory cytokines that are responsible for altering the chemistry of the brain to allow for depression, anxiety, bipolar disease, and cognitive impairment, and just being other than a great person. So now it gives me a tool that I can give to our clients, our patients, before we start treatment. And then after treatment, or after a period of treatment of, say, 3 months, as we already did in the study we did, looking at the secondary measurement, and they're all lower. So what does that tell us? It tells us that our treatment truly works. Here is an objective, definitive means of identifying that a treatment modality works. But you first have to see the inflammatory markers. So this is what brought me, through a set of circumstances, brought me to iExpress Genes, and met with their CEO and co-founder, John Schmidt, and developed an understanding of their technology. It took me a little bit while to get it, because I always look from the grass up. So I had to go through the weeds and look at everything. And I was set. And what really made it happen is I took a group of Navy SEALs and put them on this test, and then did our testing, our neuroendocrine disruption test, put them on the treatment dictated by the 28-point biomarker panel, and 3 months later repeated the iExpress gene panel. And sure enough, almost every single one of the markers that was inflamed. And then we monitor every patient, as you guys know, with the monthly program questionnaire, the MPQ. And what happened? Every month they were getting better. That's a reflection of the products. Now I had a tool that I can objectively say to anybody who challenges me, here's where they were at the beginning. They were put on this set of treatment, and here they are now.
That's one thing that I suppose we struggle with, or you doctors struggle with, in I guess you would call it functional medicine, is, that's anecdotal. Well, no.
Right.
Colonel Bowling, tell us about that panel of biomarkers that iExpress that got Dr. Gordon so excited about having that tool.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it much better, frankly, and that's why he's such an ideal strategic partner. If I could just back up one tiny step, or maybe one large step, the history of this company, I think, is really relevant to appreciating where they are today. So the origin of this company actually starts back in 2010 with the unfortunate school shooting at the University of Alabama, Huntsville. One of the survivors, who was a PhD professor who was in the room, of course, that's an incredibly traumatic experience, fortunately survived. Many didn't. There were many who were gravely wounded. But one of the survivors started experiencing changes to his cognitive behavior, to loss of appetite, inability to focus, all the normal things that we think of when we think of the results of trauma. And he was searching for solutions to figure out what's going on within his body. And there really weren't a lot of solutions in 2010, at least detailed solutions. And because he's a research scientist, he essentially said, well, I'm going to solve this problem. And he did. And for the better part of a decade, working under the umbrella sort of the Human Genome Project, because there's a close relationship there, he isolated these biomarkers and essentially created this blood panel that does exactly what Mark just described. And the key to understanding it, because it is complex science, it's very complex science. What I've learned to say over the years for people to sort of get it, and I'm in that category. Remember, I used to jump out of airplanes for a living. I'm not a scientist. Is the key word is objective. Prior to a blood panel like this existing, a clinician's ability to make these sorts of diagnoses were essentially subjective. I'm a prime example. As I was leaving the Army, of course, you go through a litany and a battery of many, many tests, and as they should be, many are based off behavioral health and those sorts of things. And they would ask me all kinds of questions. Colonel Bowling, you've been to combat this many times. Do you feel these things? Are you having these issues? And of course, like probably 99% of Army guys who are A-type personalities are like, I'm good, leave me alone, just get me out of here. And so the clinician says, well, subjectively, this guy seems fine, clean bill of health, get him out of here. When in reality, probably a lot of people aren't fine. Well, now I can remove that variable from that equation, and now I can inject objectivity, and I can measure objectively the levels of inflammation that are directly correlated with these things, like Mark said. And that's a game changer. And the last thing that I'll say, because this is where I think really people tend to get lost, think of it like a thermometer. That's how I describe it. If you have a fever, you use a thermometer to confirm that you have a fever. And the thermometer says you do in fact have a fever, but the thermometer doesn't tell you do these things to solve the problem with your fever in your body. But you know, I've got a problem. This tool had just measured that I've got a problem. Now I've got to go speak with a clinician or a provider like Mark Gordon to find out what is that problem that needs to be addressed and how do I address it so that the next time I use that thermometer, it reports 98.6. That's what this tool is, and it's looking at a specific set of biomarkers that are directly correlated to the inflammation going on in your body that's related to so many things, so many things. I believe it was last year the World Health Organization, don't quote me on this, but said upwards of 60% of death globally can be directly correlated to untreated inflammation in the human body. This
Absolutely.
tool now gives providers an opportunity to intervene, make decisions, provide treatment to solve, frankly, many, if not eventually all of those things.
If you've been told it's all in your head, but deep down you know something is wrong, listen closely. Brain fog, depression, anxiety, irritability, even PTSD. These are not just mental issues. They may be signals of neuroinflammation and hormonal disruption, root causes that traditional medicine often ignores. At the Millennium Health Centers, founded by Dr. Mark Gordon, they have helped veterans, athletes, and everyday people restore brain function using a medical process called the Millennium Protocol. Take their free brain health assessment at tbihelpnow.org and discover if inflammation, not weakness, is holding you back. You're not broken, you're unbalanced, and balance can be restored.
So, Mark, is this going to become part of the Millennium Protocol with all of the doctors, or is this something you're just working with now?
I'm going to give you a guess. 3 letters, starts with a Y, ends with an S. Okay. So absolutely. I mean, as we both shared, this is an objective test. Okay. One of the areas, or one of the things I'm doing right now, working with one of their top clinical scientists, I guess scientist, Joe. Joe's in, Joe Ng.
Joe Enge.
Joe Enge. He and I are working together with a neurodegenerative panel, which will look at things like CTE. CTE, people say, okay, you got CTE, prove it. Well, they do the MRIs, they do the special tau protein, and they see the tau tangles and so forth, the NFTs, but that doesn't tell us about the inflammation. And it doesn't tell us how effective the treatment they're giving is on that process. Multiple sclerosis. We had, about one of our cases of multiple sclerosis, a Navy lieutenant in charge of a nuclear power plant, Tim. In 14 weeks on our protocol, he no longer has any symptoms of multiple sclerosis. He was 100% in remission November 2023, and he still is, because we're able to address the neuroinflammation that's associated with ALS, with MS, with Parkinson's, with CTE, with Alzheimer's disease, with demential diseases, whether or not you're going to call it part of the spectrum of Alzheimer's, or Alzheimer's a part of the spectrum of depression, of dementia, and then all the neuropsychiatric conditions that I referred to in the papers. We have a new one being published in Military Medicine, which is Neuroinflammation, the Road to Neuropsychiatric Illnesses, that walks you through how whatever the trauma is, parachuting, bungee jumping, trampoline, football, that this causes the inciting of inflammation. But no one's doing any testing for it. There is not a single neuroradiographic protocol that's commonly used, PET scans, PEC scan, MRI, CT scan, that can look and say, there's inflammation.
Yeah.
This is a test that puts our treatment on a brand new step, which allows us to confirm that there is inflammation and then confirm in the secondary test that whatever you're doing is working.
I
And they're going
think
to find out that stuff they're using is doing zero because it doesn't address anything. There are rarely, I mean, I looked through as much as I could about SSRIs, antidepressants. There are a couple of them that can reduce inflammation, but they don't do it as well as some of our nutraceutical products like quercetin, gamma tocopherol, natural products that just wipes out the production of inflammation. And we proved it. I mean, you guys had to prove that it worked by seeing the results of the secondary or the series of I Express gene testing, and it does.
Well, that was my. You kind of already covered it, but my question, to Colonel Bowling. So when you go visit with somebody like Dr. Mark L. Gordon, and you need to tell him what this is going to do for his practice, how is it? Is it a time? Is it a time savings? Is it a money savings? It gives Mark the ability to really pinpoint before he probably knows what he's going to see before he takes his blood tests for the hormonal imbalances.
Well, let me answer that question this way, and I suspect you guys will not be surprised by this. Dr. Gordon is an anomaly, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. He's not the norm, and I suspect he already knows that. My point is, I get a lot of pushback. I know, look, I see him trying to talk. I get a lot of pushback when we talk to physicians. First off, they're busy. They're overworked in many cases. Their patient loads are massive. But we've gotten a lot of responses where physicians, unfortunately, like, hey, I don't have time for this. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't taught this in med school. Come back to me a few years from now when more people are using this. And I get it. I mean, yes, those are frustrating sorts of responses when we get that, and they're very common. But when we come across someone like Dr. Gordon who just gets it, it's a breath of fresh air, because none of this is hokum. None of this is snake oil. All of this is, by the way, peer-reviewed science that's been around for many, many years, and with very large case studies, frankly, many done through the Veterans Administration. It's just getting someone to stop for 1 second and be willing to listen to what we're saying. It's a game changer. And really, as much as I hate to use the term, the selling point is twofold. It improves outcomes. And when you improve outcomes, when you're in the medical business, you're still running a business, don't forget. So if your clinic is improving patient outcomes, I think ultimately that drives revenue back towards your clinic, because as a patient, I'm much more inclined to visit a clinic that is achieving positive outcomes for their patients. So there are really benefits on both sides of that coin for the overworked physicians. Our job at I Express Genes is, regardless of how many times we get told some version of the word no, or no thanks, or not right now, okay, take it. And we go to the next guy or the next gal or the next clinic or the next hospital. And the more that individuals like Mark Gordon talk about it out loud, and podcasts like the HeadRush Podcast, the more people are starting to realize this is a very real thing. I have to say this. We have one client who, great lady, similar in age to myself. A couple years ago, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, she found herself 200 pounds overweight with 7 autoimmune diseases, has visited every clinic within a 100-mile radius of our hometown, had seen physicians, had been prescribed medicine after medicine after medicine, and everything just got worse for her. She took it upon herself to start studying inflammation, because she said all of this other stuff just isn't working. She took it upon herself to start studying inflammation, and over the course of 4 years, she dropped 200 pounds and cured herself of 7 autoimmune diseases. I encountered her about 6 months ago, and I think she was on the verge of tears. She said, I've been waiting for something like this to come along just so I can prove that I'm not crazy, so I can prove that what I did is actually what solved these problems. There are powerful testimonials out there all over the place. Mark talked about a lot of them. This is real. Our job now is to get this product to the people who need it most.
Right. And, You said I'm an anomaly. Okay. I've been told that. But the real issue, I've been told that. But the real issue is I don't talk to physicians, generally speaking. I talk to the people who have the potential of being impacted the most, the consumer, the patients out there that are going from doctor to doctor to doctor, because honestly speaking, in my 46 years of practicing medicine, I just turned 73, is that a lot of them don't have the patience to learn the information. So it means that it has to be brought to them by a third party. You being, and I apologize, you being a sales representative for your company, or anybody in your company who's trying to promote the product is a sales representative, that's not going to impact as much as having a patient go into them and say, Doc, you've been working on my case for X amount of time, and I'm not any better. I heard about this thing for neuroinflammation, for neurodegeneration. Why don't we run that? Well, no, I don't know anything about it. Here, read.
That's it.
Or else I'll send them your name so you can go and be the first one. Don't you want to be a hero? This is what I tell some of the docs that I talk with. I said, don't you want to be a hero to your patient population? Take the extra 3 hours to learn this, or there'll be a video that'll walk you through it. Or, Gordon will have a paper pretty soon on the iExpress gene and my experience in a couple of months.
And to that note, Mark, because first off, you're 100% correct, and we're starting to see that now, and obviously that's a great problem for us.
I already told you that.
my observation and my personal opinion is that the U.S. sort of society writ large is actually in a position right now that they are hungry for these sorts of answers, these solutions to problem. And I think a lot of that, strangely, is tied to COVID. Regardless of where you fall on the whole COVID thing, it is very clear that what has now happened in the post-COVID era is a large subsection of society is sort of woken up, and they're saying, you know what? I'm actually going to take some responsibility on my own to find solutions for my health. And that's a beautiful thing. Whether you want to call it the Maha movement, or you support the things that RFK Jr. is doing and Casey and Callie means, the good news of all of that is that the regular person is awake and asking questions and taking an active involvement in their own health. And that's what opens the doors for the conversations like Mark just described. And it's a great thing.
Millions live with depression, anxiety, fatigue, or emotional chaos, believing it's permanent. It's not. The Millennium Protocol targets hidden inflammation and hormone disruption caused by trauma, stress, and time. Created by Dr. Mark Gordon, featured multiple times on Joe Rogan and the HeadRush Podcast, plus the documentary movie Quiet Explosions, this approach has transformed lives once written off as hopeless. Visit tbihealthnow.org and take the 10-question brain health assessment. Healing is possible. Your story isn't over. Let's begin again with your brain. Well, I'll tell you what, a friend of ours and a friend of the podcast, Bruce Parkman, he was a Green Beret, as you both know. And he went to the VA and they said, yeah, they now accept repeated blast exposure as a diagnosis. But you know what they give you? Drugs, and maybe yoga.
Yeah.
Now, with what happened...
And their yoga is probably better than the drugs.
Right. And now what happened the other day with Kennedy on Joe Rogan...
Yep.
Man, hopefully things will change. But to your aspect, you're 100% correct, Colonel, I'm clinically diagnosed traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, probable CTE. Clinically diagnosed. They put me on sleepy pills. They put me on pills.
Symptom treatment.
And that's exactly what Tanner told me is we can't treat the causation, we can treat the symptoms. And then Mr. NFL Paul Fraser right here introduced me to Mark Gordon and myself, the male.
I introduced you to
So Quiet Explosions.
Quiet Explosion. I said, if you watch this, I'll talk to you.
What did we do that night?
You watched it. You and Susan watched it. Yeah.
And I've been on the Mark Gordon protocol now. Well, I'm taking my last
Millennium Protocol.
the Millennium Health Protocol. I'm taking, I think it's my year, is I just got the orders to go take that now.
For the blood draws.
For the blood draw, to have
Right.
my 1 year one done. But you're 100% correct, is I've been dealing with symptoms since 1999.
Yeah.
And progressively getting worse and worse and worse. And these doctors, it's been a battle and a fight and everything since 1999 to 3 years ago to get any answers for what the hell's going on with me. You know, I've had more than several concussions and thousands of repeated head impacts and brain swishes, and everything that you have to go into these neurologists. You have to go into these doctors and be your own advocate. You have to tell them. And now I got Dr. Kaetzer and Dr. Jeremy Tanner, and they both understand both sides of the aisle. You know, and I appreciate that I'm finally got a team, along with Crystal, who's sitting right here, a team that are advocates for me, but they also know I'm looking at ibogaine. And it's like I told MBO today, I said, you know, when I talked to a former Green Beret, and he went down and done the ibogaine, that he said 100%. 100%. He said, but if you don't go through the Millennium Protocol first, you're not helping yourself. You need to do the Millennium Health Protocol first before you go do the ibogaine.
Yeah.
I think
I couldn't agree more. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just released a new paper, which updates the 2023 paper on that topic, because I'm now working with Adam Marr, who promotes the use of ibogaine and other psychedelic assisted therapies. So it's to address that. And in that article, I do talk about the iExpress gene. I might have sent you a preliminary copy of it. But yes, in order for the psychedelics to work, you need to have the chemistry of the brain receptive to the drug, to the plant-based or frog-based product. Okay, they talk about it plant-based, but there's a frog in one of them.
Right.
Okay, so anyway, absolutely. With anything, you know, the reason why a lot of our medication, even in the traditional psychiatric venue, why they don't work is because you don't have the chemistry in the brain to allow it to work. Receptors. The receptors are all distorted by inflammation, and the supporting chemicals like neurotransmitters, they're deficient because the systems necessary to generate them are impeded or destroyed or dysfunctional because of the inflammation. And we know specific components of what inflammation is. It's not just the cytokines, which are the immune-generated products, but there are reactive oxygen species. There are other molecules that are generated in this process of inflammation that are spun off from cells that are dying, that are being destroyed by mitochondria, that are being destroyed by the inflammation. So you get secondary levels of free radicals. That's why all these things we take in, like glutathione and vitamin C and vitamin E's, vitamin D, and so forth, is so bloody important. I mean, 70% of the Millennium Protocol is based upon nutraceuticals, natural products.
Yep.
Only a very small amount is based upon drugs or pharmaceutically derived products.
Right.
I was thinking of when the surfer dude in Quiet Explosions taking 85 dives to the hyperbaric, and his brain didn't look any different on the SPECT scan. And then Dr. Ammon said, "Okay, Mark, he's yours." And and I know you worked with him and got
Sean Dollar.
Yeah, you got his levels balanced out.
2 weeks after his blood test, he was balanced out, doing phenomenally well, and he was told not to go back surfing. And what he did, he went back surfing.
Yeah, yeah.
And what happened was, because of the stress of the surfing, it created a recurrence of the problem. So he went on a hiatus for a month. He's doing phenomenally. He and his wife did a movie talking about his experience, just waiting for me to get a copy of the movie. But yeah,
Well,
he did very well.
The fact is that his going through the protocol of lowering the inflammation actually gave his body and the brain a chance to actually heal and experience sustainability for a bunch of HBOT.
One of the beauties of the Millennium Protocol, it's not lifelong.
Right.
It's not lifelong. We've had people that have been in our program 3 months, they're out. 6 months, a major out of Fort Hood, 6 months. He's out and he stopped everything.
No,
So
don't you need the drugs to, for the rest of your life? No.
No, that's another story. Your chemistry of the brain gets so altered by a lot of the pharmaceuticals that you're given that yes, you do. And it's very difficult to detox off them, which is a whole nother story. Don't have the VA detox you. Go find a neuropsychopharmacologist who knows how to do it appropriately.
Right.
Now, I want to change the subject a minute if we can. We have Colonel Bowling with us, and I want to change the subject a little bit because I think our military is so special. And with what you have going on in Vietnam, my Uncle Denny was a Ranger in Vietnam. My brother was a Ranger. You are a Ranger. And please tell us, how you came about taking veterans back to the place of their war arena. The 70th anniversary of D-Day, your co-founder of the Longest Climb Foundation, John Hollis, writing about Sergeant Rodney Davis and his heroics in 1967 by jumping on a hand grenade to save his peers.
Yeah, there's another thing that you mentioned in one of your podcasts. You talk about 1.1 million. Actually, you were addressing, I think, some soldiers in Vietnam about the 1.1 million people that have given their lives, and then you backed it up with the 0.002%. Tell us about this whole journey, please.
Yeah. I will tell you, I'll warn you, it's a long story, and I know we're doing a long form podcast, but I don't think you have that much time. So I will do my best to give you the short version of it. But the bottom line is, it started in 2017 as I was about to assume battalion command in the Iron Rockasons, which is the 3rd Battalion of the 187th Infantry Regiment. They're the unit that had fought the Battle of Hamburger Hill back in 1969. I knew these veterans well because I had also been a captain in the same unit, years before. So I was very familiar with the veterans. They're very active in that unit. That is the most decorated infantry regiment in the conventional United States Army. Of course, every regiment claims that. I'm sure we're going to get lots of hate mail that I'm saying this out loud, but it's a fact. Trust me on that. So anyway, coming into command in 2017, I just sort of did the math, and I realized while I was going to be in command, the 50th anniversary of this, seminal battle of the Vietnam War would occur. And I had the great fortune of jumping into the 70th anniversary of D-Day in 2014 when I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division. And I had seen the power of that sort of event for the World War II era veterans. And it really was a thing to behold. I mean, yes, it's incredible to be in Normandy and all of that is neat, but to see the impact that it had on those veterans, it is amazing. So I thought, well, why don't I do that for the Vietnam guys? No one gives that sort of thing to them. And this is a true story. I had to brief my boss. I was a lieutenant colonel, so I had to brief my boss, who was a colonel. And I think he kind of looked at me like, why don't you go tell the general that and see what he says? So I went and told the general of the 101st Airborne Division, and he was like, Yeah, I don't think so. You kind of got a lot on your plate, man. Why don't you just focus on commanding your unit? And so you guys probably figured this out by now. I'm a little bullheaded. I kind of walked out of his office. I was like, this guy doesn't get it. We're just going to do it anyway. So we did it on our own dime. We did some fundraising, but over the course of 2 years, starting in 2017, I coordinated with the U.S. Embassy in Vietnam, the government of Vietnam, and we were able to also find some surviving North Vietnamese veterans of that same battle. And so fast forward into May of 2019, the government of Vietnam essentially rolled out the red carpet for us. And I flew with an airplane full of veterans of Hamburger Hill, and I asked that they each bring a family member when we went back to Vietnam. As you might imagine, the first day on the ground is a little awkward, as these guys are kind of trying to get to know each other. But we made some progress, and by the middle of the week, we actually did the climb to the top of Hamburger Hill. And it is not a hill, by the way; it is very much a mountain. It's actually called Dang Ngap Bia, which stands for the crouching beast in Vietnamese, because in the A Shau Valley, it's one of the higher peaks, and so you can see it from a long way away. So we spent the day climbing the mountain, and all but one of the guys in my group had never made it to the top, because the Battle of Hamburger Hill was a 10-day battle. The battalion took almost 70% casualties, so that meant most guys never made it. And so they had spent their entire lives with these, I call them, these are my words, these demons on their shoulder, wondering, why did all these people die? Why did all these people suffer? What was on top of that hill? And I wanted to give them a chance to do that. And so if you go back and you look at some of the documentary film that was done, Fox News did a great documentary of it, you'll see one of my veterans holding the hand of one of the Vietnamese veterans as we begin the ascent up Dang Ngap Bia. That's a pretty powerful thing to witness in and of itself. But we get to the top, and of course, as you might imagine, it was very powerful. I mean, quiet, somber. The Vietnamese have a memorial at the top of their own. I mean, it was a seminal event on both sides of that battle. We came home from that. Well, I do have to tell you, at the end of that week, we did a state-sponsored dinner where I had kind of been told, hey, you might want to try to sneak in some Jack Daniels here. The Vietnamese love the Jack Daniels. So we snuck in some Jack Daniels there to kind of loosen everybody up. And everybody was passing around the bottle of Jack, a couple bottles of Jack. And by the end of the night in that dinner, veterans from both sides were holding up their shirt tails and showing bullet wounds and kind of joke with each other about, who shot who first. And I was here. No, you were there.
Wow.
It was an amazing thing to behold. And there was no way I could have predicted that those events were going to transpire the way they did. But it was life-changing to say the least. But I thought that would be the end of it. It was going to be a one-time thing for those guys that I had a great relationship with. And I was happy to do it. Come back from there, transfer out of command and sort of move on with my life. My next assignment was in the Pentagon, but people kept coming back to me, talking to me about it, asking me about it. And then the word started to get out. I had one of the Hamburger Hill veterans tell me, because he had been evac'd, he never received any awards. I want to know, had he received any awards? And I said, well, let me figure that out. I'll see what I can do. So we started digging through the National Archives, and I used Army Human Resources Command to help me find some things. And it turns out he didn't have an award. He had about 15 awards.
Wow.
So he lived in the state of South Carolina. So I called the governor's office, and they gave us the state house, the stairs at the state house. We called in country music stars from Nashville, the Army band, and VA and VFW. It was this massive thing. It would almost look like an inauguration. And I pinned 15 awards on this veteran's chest, that they multiple Bronze Stars and Purple Hearts and campaign ribbons and things of that nature. I mean, they were very real awards. And they made a documentary about that, and it got out. And then people started saying, well, can you do that for me? Can you do that for me? And of course, the answer is, if someone wants your help and you can help them, you're going to do that. And in 2023, a senior mentor of mine was at a dinner in New York City, and that's where John Hollis was at the same dinner. He said, hey, John Hollis said, I would like to take my family back to Vietnam because of the Medal of Honor situation that you just referenced. And so my mentor at that dinner is a retired 4-star. He said, oh, well, I know a guy who kind of does that. His name's Colonel Bowling. And so he linked us up via email. And I told that gentleman, John Hollis, I said, I'd be happy to help you. We can essentially redo the same thing. So we did the same thing in 2024 that we had done for the Hamburger Hill guys. We did it for the Marines of 1967. And of course, it was equally as powerful. We were able to track down the Foxhole, which was really a bomb crater where Sergeant Rodney Davis had fallen on a grenade, saving the lives of everyone else in that bomb crater from his platoon. We actually found the bomb crater based off a hand-drawn map that his platoon sergeant had drawn, and we were able to overlay that with Google Earth and pinpoint where it was, and go with his family and stand in that foxhole and tell the story of what had occurred. Again, we came back from that, and Fox News, the local affiliate, documented that again. We came back from that thinking, well, it was an honor to do that again. We had a big donor that helped us cover the cost of that, who was also a Marine Vietnam veteran, and we thought that would be the end of it. And we were wrong again. And so at that point, John Hollis and I said, look, clearly there's a need out there for this. We need to at least make this a formal 501c3 so that if someone wants to donate, we can give them the proper receipts and documentation that should go along with a donation of that nature. So we stood that organization up at the end of 24. So we're just about 2 years old now. And we now take a group back every year to give them that same opportunity. We've partnered with Texas Tech. We've actually partnered with the Office of the Secretary of Defense out of the Pentagon, and it's now an official nonprofit. And right now we are about halfway through the planning phase for the next group. We're taking another group of veterans from the 101st Airborne Division who had fought one of the bloodiest battles of their regiment across 4 days in September 1968. So the theme of this trip is 4 days in September. And the unique thing about this one, and it will be, equally as powerful, but the unique thing about this particular trip is the battalion commander of those guys in 1968 has long since passed away. But his daughter, who is similar in age as I, has picked up his mantle. I mean, his soldiers loved him. He was a very beloved commander, and his daughter essentially picked up that mantle and has continued to care for those soldiers and bring them together in some form of reunion. And it's a neat thing to see, because here are these 75, 80-year-old Vietnam vets, some of them with ponytails and Harleys and stuff like that. And here's this young 50-year-old lady standing in front of him. And I mean, she's the boss, and I love it. She is brilliant, and she's hardworking, and she is carrying on her father's, mantle for caring for his soldiers. And she's at the forefront of helping get this group organized to bring them back to Vietnam. So it'll be another powerful event, and we'll keep doing it as long as the need is there. So yeah, we're the Longest Climb Foundation.
Man, God bless you, Colonel. I appreciate that so much.
This episode of the HeadRush Podcast is brought to you by the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation. Their goal is to spread awareness about the dangers of RHI, repetitive head impacts, after losing their son, Patrick, to CTE. Sadly, there are too many like Patrick that have lost their families, jobs, and sometimes their lives. And this foundation is working hard to stop the devastation that can come from not protecting the brain. This foundation provides parents of school-age children with information about the dangers of sports, concussive sports, and activities which involve head trauma.
They advertise on social media, print media, and billboards. Please follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and share their ads with others. And please visit their website, stopcte.org, to find ways to help people recognize the disease if confronted with it in their family, and how to prevent the suffering that can come to families when a brain is damaged. The website has medical forms to take to doctor's visits and advocacy letters if you want to help make change in your community. And their most recent campaign is geared up to help coaches build brain-healthy teams. You can use the information on stopcte.org website to understand CTE, live with CTE, and prevent CTE. Please visit. Thank you. And don't knock it. StopCTE.org. Anything our military can get like that, I think 100% we owe it to them. They deserve it all. Without our military, we're not America. We're not free. Even these protesters out and everything right now, hey, they owe you guys a thank you for giving them the right to go do what they do.
Right.
And no one should shut them up because you fought for the right for them to do that. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service and everything you're doing afterwards. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, I very much appreciate that, Corey. And I'll tell you the thing that we've discovered along this journey with the Longest Climb Foundation. And by the way, the name is a reference to the fact that it took 50 years for the guys to climb to the top of Hamburger Hill. That's where we came up with the name. But one of the bigger surprises here is I think people are now able to put it into some context that they probably couldn't have 50, 60 years ago. But what I'm getting at is these were young men on both sides of this battle that were doing the duty that their nation called them to do. And that's the powerful thing when you see them come together today. And again, 75, 80-year-old men, the animosity, it's not there. I mean, it's just a shared mutual respect, but more so than anything, it's a shared desire to release these demons and find peace and reconciliation at this late stage of life on both sides of it. And that's an incredible thing to witness.
Oh, yeah. And it's, and I got to give my uncle and brother both, and my other uncle who was in the Navy during Vietnam, give them all my hats off. But I've talked to my brother Scott several times and had issues with people talking about their military experience and all. And he goes, my brother never talks about his. The only time he talks about is when he had to belly flop the land in Europe when they were going to go do war games and the landing gears didn't go down on the C-130 and he had to belly flop. That's the only story. And my uncle's the same way. And he says, we just went and did our job.
That's right.
It's nothing to brag about. It's nothing to talk about. This is what we were paid to do. And we just went and done our job. And you know what? Coming from people like that and people that serve and people like yourself, I don't need to hear the stories. I don't need to hear the action reports. I don't need, dude, do your job, come home safe, and I'll have a beer waiting for you. Other than that, leave our damn soldiers alone. Take care of them. Mark Gordon is a blessing to the veterans. I mean, he gave up a private practice with civilians to go take care of our veterans. So I know his heart's in the same place as mine, that our veterans are 300% more important than any NFL athlete.
The bottom line is, and I think, Mark, I know this about your story. I think in 2008, you were actually trying to help some of these, what did you call us? This Neanderthals, maybe? But I am so glad. I'm so glad that you realized that you were better. You could better serve the men and women that serve our country. So we appreciate that about you, and Colonel can't even explain or express what I'm feeling. You think about. I mean, life is about relationship.
Yeah.
And you, oh wow, I'm just getting chills. I couldn't even imagine seeing an 80-year-old American hold an 80-year-old North Vietnamese soldier hand in hand, and but I would have gotten a kick out of seeing them lift their shirts up and joke about who shot who. Oh my gosh! And then of course the many lives that we lost in that arena. And wow,
I know my uncle's always wanted to go back to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
September.
Yeah. Well,
September.
I was gonna say, look us up. We've already got the trip for next year in the works, but we need the next one, and the next one is reality. And that I'm not saying that flippantly. That is exactly how it works. We've got to start planning at least a year in advance because there's a lot of coordination that goes into these sorts of things. But look, the reality is most of these guys, and I really mean most of these guys and gals to a degree, on both sides, like you said, they just don't talk about it. They've kept it to themselves because that's their disposition, that's their choice. I'm very familiar with that, for the record, and I respect that. But what we found is certainly us, but they as well, there was no way that you could predict the impact of this experience. There was no way. We had no idea when we first did this what we were getting into. And I have only scratched the surface of some of the stories that actually occurred that day. If we had another hour, I could tell you many, many, many more. Probably the one that most would find interesting is I had one veteran who passed away shortly after our return. But his family said to us, it was about 2 or 3 months after we returned. They said, you gave us a chance to see our father for who he truly was, because for 50 plus years, he was impacted by all of these things. And when he came home from Vietnam with your trip, he was a different person. And they just said, thank you. We got to see who he was, and he was finally able to go in peace. And of course, we didn't know those things were going to happen, and that wasn't our intent. But that's how powerful something like this can be. And so as long as we're in a position to give it to folks who need it, we're going to do it.
Well, and I just think that's combat mentality is
Right.
they go see the Vietnam who used to be their enemy. They were a soldier just like them.
Correct.
They
That's
went
correct.
and done a job that was told to go do, and they went and did it to the best of their ability. So I don't see the hatred between them. I see the courage, the heroism, the camaraderie. I see all of that in it. And
Correct.
I think it's such a beautiful thing when it comes to our military. And man, I can't, there's nothing better in my life than my military. Mark, get back on topic a little bit.
I want to go back to something Colonel Bowling said. You said the word snake oil, and I get so frustrated. I just watched a day-long symposium of the most advanced neurological neurosurgeons and neurologists and all this stuff, and they had, I'm just going to call it ignorance. They said the word snake oil, and they referred to things that are clinically proven, peer-reviewed. It's almost like saying SV40 causes cancer. It's a cancer promoter. They never told us that. They never told you things in nutrition in class. Why are these people that would seem to be on the upper echelon of neurology saying the word about snake oil, about whatever, functional medicine that is proven and clinically proven, and these nutraceuticals and so on and so forth? We could go on about an hour about that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Thank you.
Mark, give us a 101. Peptides. Peptides is the new buzzword for the last 8 years or 5 years. You just wrote a book. You just released your book.
This episode of the HeadRush Podcast is brought to you by our personal doctor and team of doctors, Dr. Mizelle DeMayo, and she's with the Paradise Behavioral Health, and we are in the
Brainwell program, which is also part of the Millennium Health Center. Dr. Mark Gordon, you've seen him on Joe Rogan and even on our show, the HeadRush Podcast, and hormones. And Mizelle is awesome. We love her.
She's our doctor of psychiatry. She works the Mark Gordon program with the hormones, and she adds her twist of genetics, and it basically is melding two wonderful mediums together, and we're getting great help from Dr. Mizelle DeMayo.
So please check out her website at paradisebehavioral.com. Look up the Brainwell program. Get involved.
She's sponsoring us. They're sponsoring us for the next year, so we are excited to have them on board and shout the good news to everybody that is watching these broadcasts. So,
is she helping you, Paul?
Absolutely.
She's helping me. So go check her out. ParadiseBehavioralHealth.com.
Well, it goes into the venue of regenerative medicine as well as it does as a functional tool to address the inflammatory markers that we find. There are peptides like ARA290 and BPC157, and if you want to add in a skin copper peptide, the GSKCU, that these address the inflammatory moieties or the inflammatory chemistry that we're picking up in the I-Express gene as a general. But aside from the book, Peptides for Health, the medical version and then the consumer's versions, what's even more important are the two papers that I just released that deal with the safety and responsibility of companies that have popped up overnight that are promoting and selling peptides to uneducated consumers that say, oh, BPC157, thymosin 4-beta, MOTC, Wolverine stack, this, that, and the other. Oh, I'm going to do that. Well, they don't ask the very basic question. Where do these things come from? Only 9% of the peptides that are sold in the United States are made in the United States. The rest of it come from India first and China next. And in 2023, everybody's heard the recent buzz by RFK Jr. And then if they saw the Joe Rogan number 2461, I think it was Friday, it was released Monday or was something like that, where RFK stated that 14 of the 19 peptides that were pulled off of the ability for compounding pharmacies, the 503As, and the manufacturing, the 503Bs, that they no longer can have these 19 peptides because they've been moved into what's called a category 2, which means you can't manufacture or sell them because there are problems with it. And the problems with it are about where they come from, the purity of it, the quality of it, the structure of it, and the documentation that the entire protocol used to manufacture from amino acids. These chains of amino acids called peptides are actually what is on the bottle. So in 2023, the FDA overreached themselves and put 19 of these peptides onto a category 2. Well, in the meetings that the FDA had on these peptides, they said it theoretically could cause this problem. Therefore, we're putting it into category 2. And what they illegally did back in 2023, which RFK Jr. brought to the forefront, is that they put them on a category 1, which is usable, to a category 2 without appropriate documentation. It was summarized. It was suppositional. It was possibility. So what RFK did and announced in print and then on Joe Rogan is that he is releasing, or some of them have a lot of research on it, opposite to what the FDA said in 2023. And those are probably going to be the first ones to be released. The CMAX, the BPC157, I think CMAX and CellLink, some of the ones that are extremely important, will probably come out before the other group. But they still have to go through the testing and the verification to move them from class 2 to class 1. It has been done, and what he stated is not categorically going to happen. It has to go through a process. So people who are listening to this, yes, it's good statement. He's predicting what's going to happen. He mentioned on it that he uses peptides as well. So he's probably illegally using them because the ones I would assume he uses are ones which we all would like to use or have used in the past before they became illegal. Anyway, peptides are a unique group of chains of amino acids. They're not proteins because they're too small. And these peptides are similar to ones we have in our body that turn on systems that have shut off. So what it does is it's a signaling molecule. And one of the beauties about peptides, they're so small, they're so fragile, that once they're put into the system by injection, very few orally, that what happens is they're broken down and they stop acting. So they go in, they function, they do their job, and then they're removed. They're removed through enzymatic means, degradation, endopeptidases, enzymes that disrupt the structure of it, so they're gone. So this is good. It's a built-in safety factor for it. So peptides have incredible benefits. My first book, which is the consumer version, is about 360 pages. It has 60 pages or 30 pages of just terminology. So if you're not really aware of the terminology, the last chapter 34 is terminology. So you can read what I'm talking about, and I try to be very clear. The clarity is these are phenomenal tools if used appropriately in the right hands by people who know it, not just acquiring them because Bubba told you in the gym this is good CJC 1295 or ipamorelin or tesmorelin or whatever, that these are good. It's about having a doctor who goes and checks to see whether or not you even need them by looking at certain parameters in laboratory testing. And then while you're on it, to make sure you're not overdosing on it, because there are problems with overdosing of anything we do in life. You know, too much good scotch, single malt scotch, Balvenie, you know, too much of that. More than a half a bottle in a night, it's too much. But it's like anything else we do, moderation, not excess. And also knowing if there's a risk for you in using a peptide. So this first book, volume 1, in a medical version and in a consumer version, go through this protocol of overview, mechanism of functioning, what you should do before you take it, who the ideal people are. The new volume, which will be out, there are 3 volumes in the set. The second volume is adding another 20. The first book had 30 peptides broken down to the weeds. And then the second book has 20, but it has a new grouping of, we've been doing since 2019 with our veterans and also with our civilian population, we've been doing peptides. I don't sell peptides. I just educate on it. I give all of our potential utilizers of these peptides direction and how to find where to get it. I don't sell them.
Do you?
Go ahead.
Do you ever talk about peptides derived from food products like red meats and fish and legumes and eggs and all that fun stuff, or do they?
No.
Do they equate to what you're talking about?
There are chemicals in all those things that you talked about that have benefit to the body, but these peptides are fragile. So by the time you cook your steak, you'll get the iron, the B complex if you don't overcook the steak beyond just heating it up on the outside, medium raw, the way I like it, medium rare, medium raw. Otherwise, you overcook it. Like the guys who have it done well done or medium well, you're destroying most of the nutritional value in it.
And the taste.
And as well as, unless you like burnt, unless you like burnt. So anyway, I'm just battling with, I just got some Australian Wagyu in ribeyes.
Ooh.
Unbelievably buttery from a company in northern New York. Reasonably priced. I won't buy it every day, but reasonably priced. Better than going into a restaurant and getting a 15-ounce Wagyu A5, Anyway, so the peptides are extremely important. You've got to know what you want, read about it. In the second book, it has peptides for vision. Peptides, I just finished a couple of cases with multiple sclerosis, 7 cases with stroke. We've got a number of cases. And when I was in Southeast Asia on a project for Vietnam, separate from Dr. Bolin, treated a gentleman with Parkinson's, 78 years of age. He's about 50% better in 6 days. And that's not me. That's his family looking at how well he's doing. So getting more and more cases and being able to write about it, getting laboratories done on them, pre and post labs. On some of them, we can't do it because of where they're located, also financial aspects to it. And so the second volume will have more of these case reviews and these case studies. And periodically I'll post one I think I just told you I did a knee in a patient with BPC 157 and thymosin 4 beta and IGF-1, which is our triple peptide protocol that we developed in 2019 on myself after tearing my quadricep femoris and my quad muscle. 2 of the 4 muscles were partially torn. What a painful experience, man. I heard it and felt it tearing. And that was just crazy. And they said it would take me 6 to 9 months to be able to function. 6 weeks later, I'm back doing just about everything I wanted to by injecting right into the area. Shoulder, rotator cuff, my back, I'm going in for surgery. I delayed it for 3 years. But there's a number of benefits to the peptides, and I won't delay this any longer. But on the website, my primary website, I have a sample of the book, both the medical one and the consumer edition, so you can see my writing skill and what the important factors are. And it has a couple of the chapters included. Out of the consumer has 34 chapters, the medical has 33. The medical is 262 pages. The civilian one, or the consumer one, is 360, almost 60 pages more, 30 pages more for explanation and 30 pages just for terminology.
If you or someone you love is living with Parkinson's, MS, or symptoms associated with CTE, this is worth knowing. Ambio Life Sciences offers a novel alternative medicine called Ibogaine and operates the only Ibogaine clinic in the world for people with neurodegenerative disorders.
Many are reporting meaningful improvements in their quality of life after Ibogaine treatment. Interested? You can learn more about Ibogaine and apply at ambio.life.
Peptides for health, optimizing human potential and recovery with peptides.
Right.
Dr. Mark L. Gordon.
Now, before I ask my last question, now I may be wrong, and tell me if I'm wrong. And I know, Gordon, you'll tell me immediately if I'm wrong.
I'll hold my peace.
You and Colonel Bowling, are you working together on this health retreat in Vietnam?
Yes.
Not yet, but directions. He's going to be part of it.
I was going to say, we're getting there. We're in the early stages of it.
Dialogue.
Bottom line, because I've got quite a network into that country on both the economic, diplomatic side of things. And frankly, it's a beautiful country with great people. And there is a strong desire to diversify supply chain for all the reasons that we're all eminently aware. I do try my best to help good companies, integrate into the Vietnamese economy when I can. I'm able to do that because of some other very close friends I've got who work specifically in that arena and have for many, many years. And so as Mark and his team are putting this project together, I'm happy to help them to the extent that I'm able to do so. It's very honorable what they're doing. And I think they're going about it in exactly the right way, which is not a surprise for anyone that knows Mark.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's actual funny because we've started a nonprofit, the HeadRush Foundation, and we're hoping to raise money to help people to get help needed for TBI, CTE, and all of that. And I asked Mark, I said, Mark, you want to be on our board? He goes, I don't do boards. I'm not on anyone else's board. I ain't doing it. Well, Mark, you're on a board now. It's not the HeadRush board, but you're on a board with this. Tell us a little bit about it.
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Well, my relationship with iExpress Genes is growing rapidly because we have compatibility and synergy. And in having experienced the impact that their testing has had on my ability to substantiate and justify objectively what I'm doing, means that I want to spend as much time as I possibly can to help bring their technology into the light, because this has a potential, if the doctors will pick it up, potential of making their efficiency of what they're doing very, very clear. Because there are so many people out there that says, I treat TBI, I treat PTSD, I treat head trauma, who are doing very standard, very suboptimal treatment while they're thinking they're doing the very best. This test in and of itself will allow for that definition to be clear. It won't be suppositional. It won't be guesswork. It will be yes. Yes. But knowing before you treat is the most important. And what this will allow us to do is to know exactly what the inflammatory parameters are and how they influence the hormones. As you've known from my prior discussions, that trauma gets inflammation. The inflammation shuts off all this chemistry in the brain that drops the inflammation. So if you have nothing to defend the brain against inflammation, you're just going to continue to see mounting inflammation. And that's what leads to other inflammatory chemicals to be turned on and the destruction of neurons, glial cells, just the entire neuroconductivity of the brain. And that's why over time you see the progressive problems in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, CTE, ALS. So yes, it's meant to be that my standing or sitting, if it's sitting on the board or standing on the board, depending upon your perspective, that it makes sense. And yes, I don't normally sit on boards. Monthly, I get asked to sit on boards because they think I know something. And it just, the more diversions or distractions I have, the less focus I have. I'm handing more and more of my practice to my daughter, Allison. Takes care traditionally of all our civilian population, NFL also, NHL, NBA, blah, blah, blah. And then the civilians who have had car accidents or assaults or what have you, and passing more to her because I need more time to write more, to go and travel more, to be a representative of what we do, what the Millennium does. You know, not what Gordon does, but what the Millennium does. And hopefully to lecture and to recruit more doctors. On our website, we've got in the TBI team, we've got a listing of doctors. You've had Dr. DeMaio, who's one of our primary psychiatrists in our program that you've had on the program a couple of times. You might visit her every now and then when you're in Florida. But that's my stance. Take it or leave it.
Well, I think we got the next best thing on our board, other than Mark Gordon, is we got Mizell DeMaio on our board.
DeMaio.
My twin,
Well,
my Filipina twin.
Exactly. Well, you guys both stay in your lanes because you'll go a lot farther staying in your lane than zigzagging outside of the lane. So, but what an honor, Colonel Bowling and Mark. Always a joy, a pleasure, and thank you so much. Really quick, we like to leave our listeners with a word of hope. Colonel?
Yeah, that's easy for me. I spent my entire career in uniform, training the next generation to do hard things in very challenging places. And it's easy if you just log on and you read the news or listen to the news to be told that the future is not bright, or that, you know, there are all these concerns. And sure, there'll always be concerns, but let me tell you, we're in good hands. The next generation is smart, hardworking. They understand the problem in a way that generations prior have not. And my son is I have two sons, part of that generation, and they are both way smarter, way brighter, more disciplined than I was at those ages. And so we're in good hands, whether they're in the uniform with the stars and bars on their shoulders and jumping out of airplanes, or whether they're in the university studying to go into the medical career field. I am positive that our future is in great hands with these next generations, and I've seen it time and time again.
Thank you. Mark, any word of hope?
Well, excuse me. Let me shut that off. Sorry. My surgeon. Sorry. Anyway, so as you started the show, you had a sentence and the word hope, as you just said, was in it. I think I am more hopeful now for all those people that are listening who have a condition that is relative to traumatic brain injury or what have you, because we now have technology that can look at causation and outcome. Causation, inflammation, the effect of that inflammation on your neuroregulatory system, the neuroendocrine system in the brain, we can now define it. We see it objectively. And therefore, there should be a lot of hope for those people that are listening, because you can now go and address this with your healthcare provider and request that they have the inflammatory testing done by iExpress Gene. They can get access to our 28-point biomarker panel. Yes, we developed it over 14 years, but I make it available to any of my colleagues who realize that there's a better way to deliver treatment and hope of return to normal life, period.
There you go.
And before we go, Jordan, can you put up the TBI Help Now website, please, for Mark Gordon? This is how you get a hold of Mark Gordon, is through here. Go to tbihelpnow.org, and you can get a hold of everything you need, find the clinician, do everything you need to right on that website, ladies and gentlemen. So go to tbihelpnow.org and the Millennium Health Protocol.
And we'll definitely get iExpress Gene's information on probably either the intro or the outro. So
it's already on there.
Is it? All right. Corey's already got it taken care of.
The longestclimbfoundation.org.
I got that too.
Awesome.
I put that before I put everything else because of that. And I want to thank you all for such a great episode. Thank you, Mark. As always, you've become a friend. You become an alliance with the HeadRush Podcast. And yes, we believe in inflammation. What do we believe in?
Inflammation.
Inflammation. I've had PET bone scans that show my inflammation. I've got the atrophy. I've got more studies and everything than you can shake it, stick at to prove it. And I'll tell you what, if you look at me from a year ago,
right,
what's the difference?
Night and day. I mean, we've been through a lot in this year, and you have, your Crystal could chime in better than I. I mean, he's.
You are your ability to be around other people that you don't know. Crowds used to be you'd be swinging or thinking about it in a response. Now you can be prepared, go into a crowd, not act like a horse's hoof. You had the ability, the recall is much different. Your ability to be by yourself, your gait, walking around, the interactions with people.
And it's
so much different and improved than what it was when we first met.
And it's not the Mark Gordon protocol; it's the Millennium
Health Protocol.
Millennium Health Sciences,
and it's Paradise Behavioral Health.
And now I'm hearing it's iExpress Genes combined with that too. So thank you, gentlemen.
Man, we can't get any better than that. And you just heard from my therapist, Crystal Clark. And she's been with me for a year, and she sees the difference. My short-term memory is I can't remember what yesterday was. And so we got the therapist here that actually remembers a lot better than I do. And I think Mark remembers a lot better than I do. And
you remember very well, because every day you call me with this. Did you do this, Paul? No, I forgot, Corey. So
we actually made a bet, because our next time we come into recording, we actually got Dr. Amen coming on. Thank you, Mark. And it's funny because I made a bet with Paul. I said, Paul, I'll bet you $5 you don't make your airline ticket tonight. He goes, you're on. What happened, Paul?
I owe you $5. Thank you all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Again, my hat's off to you, Colonel. Thank you for your service and everything you do for our military. If you ever need anything or want to be on the podcast, reach out, man. You're welcome anytime, just like Mark, and we'll do whatever we need to. So stay alert.
And stay alive.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.